Hi there! You've been looking for a video on German conjugation. Now, I understand when you first see that part of grammar, of German grammar, you might be a little bit overwhelmed. But please be rest assured, there's a number of rules and I will show them to you in a number of examples. And you can do this, you can learn it, and it will not be so difficult afterwards. So let's get going. Okay, before we dive in talking about the conjugation, die Konjugation, we need to talk about personal pronouns, which means the person who is actually saying or doing something. So these personal pronouns are categorized in two categories. One is singular, the other one is plural. Now for the singular, you have three persons, person one, second and third. First person singular is ich, I. Second person singular is du, you. And third person is er, sie, es, which is he, she and it. Then we move to the plural. Now here you also have three persons. One is first person plural is wir, we. For the second person plural, you have an informal and a formal version, which is ihr or sie, both meaning you in English. And then you have the third person, sie, which means they. Now we can move on a little bit to talk a little bit more about how you start conjugating. You have your verb. In this case, I have an example, lernen, okay, which means learning. Now, we take the word stem and we just change the ending of it. That is basically the conjugation. That's what you do. Now, how do we find the word stem? Now, we have verbs in a basic form. This basic form ends in en, as I've marked red here for you. If you take en away, you're left with learn in this case. And that's all you need. You need this word stem and then just put it in the correct person with the following rules. For ich, you add an e to your word stem and you end with ich lerne. For du, you add an st to your word stem, which is du lernst. And for the third person singular, er, sie and es, you just add an t at your word stem and you end with er lernt, sie lernt, es lernt. Now we can move to the plural form, which is the first person is wir lernen. Well, you might notice, whoops, we have the en back, just like in the basic form. Yes? So you don't really need to learn something. You just need to know that for wir, you basically put it back in the basic form because wir requires en. Wir lernen. We learn. Then for ihr, it is the word stem plus t, which is ihr lernt. And for the third person, it is sie lernen. So you take your word stem and just like we had it with the first person plural, you just add en again, which again, yes, it is the verb in the basic form. So not much to learn here. Just you got to remember that you just have the verb in the basic form for wir and for sie, for the first person plural and the third person plural. So this is the basic rule how you conjugate. Yay! Not so bad. Now, if we move on, now it gets a little bit more interesting. If your word stem ends in a d, in a m, an n, or in a t, you need a little helper e. You need to add this e here before you add the ending that you have just come accustomed here. Now, let me explain. I have written down the word reden, which means to talk. Now, in the first person singular, there's no difference. You just do it like I've just taught you. You just add an E to your word stem, which is ich rede. Now, if we take du redest, now you will find that there's the first time the helper E. ST is what you already have learned. When you have du, you add to the word stem ST. Now, we couldn't pronounce it quite well. Du redst is kind of weird to say. So we need this helper E to make it a little bit easier for us to say it. So you would say du redest. We need that E there. The same we need the E when we have the third person singular. Er redet, sie redet, es redet. So you see, we again just add the T to our word stem, but we need to squeeze in this E here. For the plural, the first person, there's no difference. You just add your en at after the word stem and everybody's happy. Wir reden. Now, for the second person plural, ihr redet, we need the E in between. Otherwise, it'll again be hard for us to pronounce. And again, third person plural, we just add the en to our word stem. No matter that it ends in a D, we can pronounce it Sie reden quite easily. Now, for you to practice a little bit, I have written down a few verbs that have that particular problem where the word stem ends in a D. So you need to go ahead and just bear in mind that you need to have that little helper E added to the second person singular, third person singular, and to the second person plural. And those words are finden, to find, bilden, to form, gründen, to found, and reden, to talk. So as you see, your word stem is find, your word stem here is bild, your word stem here is gründ, and your word stem here is red. Okay, so that is for you to practice. And I will put in the description field the solution for that. So if you do not wish to know, then don't look there right now. Just do it first by yourself. Practicing is good. Making mistakes is not a big deal. It's actually good because through your mistakes you learn. But if you look for the solution right away, it doesn't really have that effect. So anywho, then I told you there's also a rule for if the word stem ends with M, just like we have it in atmen, to breathe. So basically the same thing, like with the D. Now, in the first person singular, no difference. You just say ich atme. What we've done before, you take the word stem, and at the end, you just put an E. Now, du requires our little helper E. Now, we still have the ST, and we have our word stem, and we squeeze the E in. So it is atmest. Du atmest. Then for the third person singular, we need the helper E. We have our word stem, and we let our verb end in the T. We've already learned that, but we need the E in between. Again, strictly for pronunciation reasons. Er atmet, sie atmet, es atmet. In the plural, for the first person, no difference. You take your word stem and you just add the en at the end. Wir atmen. Then for the second person, we again need our little helper E. It is the word stem and then atmet. We just add the T at the end. And the third person plural, no difference. We just take our word stem and add the en. Sie atmen. Now, if your verb ends in an N, same thing. In this case, öffnen, which means to open. In the first person singular, no difference. You just take your word stem as you had it before and you add your I. Ich öffne. Now, you need the helper I for the second person singular. Du öffnest. Our word stem öffnen, helper I, and we just add the ST. Now, third person, er, sie, es. In all three cases, er öffnet, sie öffnet, es öffnet. We need little helper E after the word stem and our T. Now, we really love the plural, first person plural, no difference, wir öffnen. Second person plural, we again need our helper E after the word stem and then the T, and we say ihr öffnet. And the third person plural, no difference here, we just basically leave it in the basic form. We can say sie öffnen. Again, I have a few examples here for you to practice with. This is rechnen, to calculate. Word stem is rechnen, all right? Then trocknen, to dry. Word stem is trocken. And to draw is zeichnen. Word stem, zeichnen. All right? So you can practice with that. Again, same rules here apply if you just basically have the ending like here, added to these verbs in the respective person, you're all set. That's the rule. Now, then I told you, if your word stem ends with a T, as in Antwort, antworten, to answer, the word stem Antwort, then same thing applies. Ich antworte. No difference here. We love that. You need the helper E for du. Du antwortest. Helper E again for er antwortet. Sie antwortet. Es antwortet. Then we love ourselves the singular, the plural first person. Wir antworten. Ihr antwortet. Sie antworten. Again, I've put together a few examples showing you the word stem. Arbeiten, to work. Word stem is arbeit, ending in the T. Beobachten, to watch, ending in the word stem ending in a T. Beobacht. Then fechten, to fence. Word stem ending in the T. Fecht. Then mieten, to rent or lease. Word stem ending in the T. Miet. Then warten, to wait. Word stem ending in the T. Wart. And retten, to save somebody. Word stem ending in the T. Rett. Now we get to the final set of exceptions to this conjugation rule of this lesson. And it is if your word stem is ending in the following letters, which is the S, the double S, the scharfe S or SZ. If this guy looks a bit funny to you and you go like, what is that? I've never seen this. Then I have a video on the German alphabet, and I will explain this a little bit in more detail there. But in essence, it is just another version of an S sound in the German language. It is a letter, part of our German alphabet. Then there is the X, and then there is the Z or Z. Now, I have chosen the word tanzen, to dance, to give you an example of this again. If you have the word stem ending in Z, as it is here, tanz, you go ich tanze, like we had before. The first person is very easy. Du, now the du already has an exception. In this case, we've always needed an ST. All different versions I've just spoken about, there was always an ST here. Well, with a Z or any of those letters here above, you don't need it. So it says du tanzt. All right? Now here, tanzt, sie tanzt, es tanzt. All right? You just add to the word stem the letter T. Wir tanzen, ihr tanzt, add a T, and sie tanzen. You just add to the word stem, en. Now, again, I've put together a few examples, and as you see, I have used any of these other letters as well, which is in this case beißen, S, beißen, sounding of the S sound, beißen, to bite, beweisen, to prove, heißen, to call, mean, heizen, to heat, and mixen, to mix. So if you apply to any of these words whose word stem is ending in that group of letters, you apply this rule here and you'll be perfectly fine. So if you want to practice, these are the words for you. Now, how was that? I hope you enjoyed this a little bit and you had this aha moment where you go, oh yes, it is not that difficult. There are some rules. It is not just crazy made up endings that I'll never understand. So, of course, there are irregular verbs. It is not the whole topic about conjugation. But I want to explain it to you first in a simple form with regular verbs, so it makes sense to you, and then we can dive a little bit deeper. But in general, if you know that, you are, for the most verbs that you will use when speaking German, this will be so helpful and you can apply that. Either listen to the video or watch the video again, to just, have it settle in your mind and you understand, if you haven't already. Or maybe at least take these verbs that I have written down for you and practice. Just try to put it in the different personal pronouns and, just write it down. It is so important to write things down or type it up, whatever works better for you. But I think it's important that you either type it or write it and not just visually, just say, okay, I got it. I think it's important to write things or even to speak it out. I mean, speak, oh yes, please. All the verbs I'm telling you, I'm teaching you here, it is so important that you actually don't just listen. Listen is important, but you need to speak itself. You want to learn German, you need to be able to speak it. Your mouth needs to say these words, and then your brain will better, store them up there, and you'll be able to use them when needed. But again, the examples, I either will have the solution description field or I put a link to it, to the solution, so you don't accidentally cheat. You don't want to see it, but you see the solution. So I want you to practice. It is okay to make mistakes. It is not okay to not practice. So please practice German, and I promise you, you will get better. Thank you very much for listening to me so far. I'm really enjoying this. I'm having so much fun putting this together. And if you like this video, I would be happy if you would click the like button, or if you even wanted to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And I see you next time. Bye. Tschüss.